So what if I told you guys that Van Buren wasn't the only promised Fallout game? Well, okay, Van Buren and the original concept for the Fallout MMO game that was supposed to happen before we were graced with the MMO that just works, Fallout 76. We're going to take a little journey today and check out what that game was. So, I recently saw this mock-up of some sort of advertisement or maybe a menu screen background for the original Fallout game. It says Fallout, A GURPS Post-Nuclear Adventure. We see what looks like an early version of the Power Fist, or my guess maybe the Pip-Boy, on the character's right arm. A destroyed city in the background that gives me major Necropolis vibes, although I don't know if Necropolis had been theorized by then. And we can't forget that flaming Skelly Bro in the foreground. He looks like he is
straight up not having a good time.
And I've been intrigued ever since then. I've never heard of GURPS. I don't know if that's even how you're supposed to say it, but it's a lot faster than me saying GRUPS every single time I want to say it, so I'm just going to say GURPS. Nor have I heard a ton about the early Fallout development myself. So just like Kendrick, I went running for answers, and this is what I came up with. A quick YouTube search brings up this 1996 promo video for Fallout, A GURPS Post-Nuclear Adventure. Credit to Fallout Fans editor for posting this one. In the video we can see some early shots of that promo screen. The player battling some rad scorpions in a cave, equipping some armor, and some other basic game functions. So there is where the image must be from, I'm assuming. But okay, that still doesn't tell me what GURPS is, and I'm sure those of you that do know must be tearing your hair out right now. So I did a quick Google search of GURPS and found the answer right away on Wikipedia. And according to Wikipedia, GURPS is the generic universal role-playing system. It's a tabletop game system designed to allow for play in any game setting, and was created by Steve Jackson Games and first published in 1986, at a time when most such systems were story or genre specific. Players control their in-game characters verbally, and the success of their actions are determined by the skill of their character, the difficulty of action, and the rolling of dice. Characters earn points during play, which are used to earn greater abilities. Gaming sessions are story told and run by game masters, often referred to as simply GMs. GURPS won the Origins Award for Best Role-Playing Rules of 1988, great year, and in 2000 it was inducted into the Origins Hall of Fame. Many of its expansions also have won awards. Now if you scroll down a bit on Wikipedia, they have a paragraph that explains to us the GURPS concept. So the concept of GURPS. Role-playing games in the 1970s and 1980s, such as Dungeons & Dragons, generally use random numbers generated by dice rolls to assign statistics to player characters. In 1978, Steve Jackson designed a new character generation system for microgames Melee and Wizard that used a point-buy system. Players are given a fixed number of points with which to buy abilities. The hero system, first used by the Champions role-playing game published 2 years later, also used a point-buy system. Now in the GURPS system, players have 4 basic attributes: strength, dexterity, intelligence, and health. Each attribute has a number rating assigned to it. Normally they begin at 10, representing typical human ability, and can go as low as 1 for nearly useless. It's starting to sound a little bit familiar to me, I don't know about you guys. Up to 20 or higher for superhuman power though. Anything in the 8 to 12 range is considered to be normal or average area for humans. Basic attribute scores of 6 or less are considered crippling. They are so far below the human norm that they are only used for severely handicapped characters. Scores of 15 or more are described as amazing. They are immediately apparent and draw consistent comment. Now, the attribute scores also determine several secondary characteristics, and the 4 major ones are hit points, will, perception, and fatigue points. So basically it was a system that was used instead of rolling the dice to determine what a player would do in a tabletop RPG. Player skills and base attributes would decide, and it sounds like they were kind of maybe convertible between games, so maybe you could have the same character setup in a sci-fi tabletop game, have the same setup as in a fantasy game, and kind of, do something like that. And it is starting to sound familiar. To me, it sounds very much like the special system from Fallout. I'm sure that GURPS was intended to be the special system in the beginning, and that's what the game was designed around. But then they turned to the special system instead for some reason. So let's go back though and take a look at Steve Jackson, the creator of GURPS. So if we take a look at Steve Jackson, he's an American game designer. His notable creations include the role-playing game GURPS and the card game Munchkin. And if we scroll down, we can see in the 1980s Steve Jackson games here. It says that Jackson became interested in designing and publishing a new role-playing system in the middle of 1981, intending it to be detailed and realistic, logical and well-organized, and adaptable to any setting and any level of play. He announced GURPS in 1983, although the companies and magazines delayed development of GURPS until 1984, making the combat system book Man-to-Man Fantasy Combat from GURPS, 1985, available for Origins, 1985, and the full GURPS basic set appeared the next year in 1986. What's funny too is if you scroll down on his Wikipedia page, there is a reference to a 1990 Secret Service incident in legal actions. It says, on March 1st, 1990, the United States Secret Service raided the offices of Steve Jackson Games based on suspicious illegal hacker activity by game designer Lloyd Blankenship, and seized, among other materials and media, his manuscript for GURPS Cyberpunk. So then Steven Jackson went to the Secret Service headquarters the next day to get his book drafts. I guess I don't know, man, you have some balls to walk up to the Secret Service headquarters. He was told that GURPS Cyberpunk was a handbook for computer crime. Steven Jackson Games filed a successful lawsuit against the government, which went to trial in 1993 as Steve Jackson Games Inc. versus the United States Secret Service. That is a hell of a headline right there. Can you imagine? That would be so cool to tell my kids one day, yeah, I sued the Secret Service. Yeah, I won. And this was all made possible through the newly created civil rights organization, the Electronic Frontier Foundation. So now the question though is, why did Interplay change from GURPS to Special? We've almost certainly concluded that GURPS was designed to go in the place of where the Special system is now. And that question I still haven't found a solid answer to. The Fallout fandom wiki says broadly that it's due to quote-unquote legal disagreements between Interplay and Steve Jackson Games. In a 2004 conversation on the forum.rpg.net, a user NPC Jeremy said, quote-unquote, "Have you ever met Steve Jackson or any of his employees? They're not very nice or friendly people. They're extremely arrogant." And it's actually funny, if you scroll down a little bit, somebody says, "Will NPC Jeremy's crusade ever end? Tune in 15 years from now to find out." Well, here we are, more than 15 years later. 17 years later, right? Am I doing that math right? Hold up. 2004. Yep, 17 years later. And, well, I don't see any answers. Another user named The Masked Potato, this is also still back in 2004, said, "I was under the impression that Steve Jackson objected to some of the violent content in the Fallout trailer video, the execution in particular, but maybe I'm hallucinating, ? He then provides a list of events that he somehow thinks happened. I'm not sure where he got this information from, that may have led to Steve Jackson pulling out of the Fallout project. 1. The game is being produced. Interplay is even working on expanding the engine to do other genres for later titles. Fantasy will be next, after their trip into the post-Holocaust." I think he meant apocalypse there, so we're just going to go with apocalypse. 2. Interplay provides an approval copy of the game to Steve Jackson. Steve Jackson has X amount of time to look over and approve or make comments, etc. 3. Steve gets busy and puts it off. He never gets around to firing up the computer and trying it until the very, very last day before the deadline hits on approvals. If he doesn't object by the deadline, approval is presumed and the game goes forward. 4. Steve fires up the machine and fiddles with the game for just a few minutes, long enough to watch the opening trailer, with references to Vietnam execution scene redone Fallout style, and poke around in the game. He whips up a list of complaints based solely on what he sees in these first couple minutes. Maybe because he really does consider these things a problem, but also because filing objections before the deadline will extend the approvals period and buy him more time. Interplay sees Steve and Jackson's comments, doesn't include any references to real gameplay, just the opening stuff and the starting character generation and whatnot. Heated discussions begin. Heated discussions end in Fallout going it alone. So there we go. We don't know if that's true or not, but it is something to go off of. What we do know at the end of the day is that Interplay and Steve Jackson did not agree on the end product, and thus Interplay or Steve Jackson decided to pull out. We don't know which one fired the first shot, sort of, as to who did not want to go with who, but I would have to assume off of what we've heard about what kind of person Steve Jackson is just from these forum posts that maybe it was him, likely it was him, who decided to pull out, and Fallout just said, you know what, we'll go with our own system. So the last thing that I want to do is let's go connect all the dots on our trusty corkboard. This corkboard definitely did not have a Shutterstock logo on it before, so that's good. Now we can see here all the primary subjects of our investigation. Now we got Steve and Jackson here. Steve is obviously tied to Steve Jackson Games, and Steve Jackson Games was working on Vault 13, GURPS, a Post-Nuclear whatever adventure, which later became Fallout, a GURPS Post-Nuclear Adventure. He's also tied to the Secret Service because, you know, why not? Why can't we do anything around here without the government getting in the way? Now, the GURPS system later became the Special System when Steve pulled out of the agreement with Interplay. And of course, Interplay was the lead developer behind Fallout and Vault 13, as it was formerly known. And there you have it. At the end of the day, the Fallout series could have been known as the Vault 13 series, maybe. It was sure shaping out to be that way, and, you know, it's crazy that if this series of events didn't happen the way that it did, we might be playing Vault 76, the greatest MMORPG role-playing game to ever exist. So thank you guys for going on this journey with me. I wonder what the Vault 13 version of the original Fallout game looked like. You know, how different it was, if there were different references because the special system was no longer a thing. I don't know, and we probably will never know, but till next time, I've been JDog1025, and you guys have a great day.